So are we in a bubble? Is the real estate market about to crash?
We're in a super bubble that's about to burst.
And creating arguably the biggest housing bubble of all time in 2022.
Warning the U.S. could see a potential housing bubble.
Oh God, the house prices are up, and oh God, the interest rates went up, and oh God, I'm never gonna be able to get a house.
Is there a housing bubble?
Well, we're getting that question a lot lately, so I wanted to do a video and tell you the truth.
But I know the truth. There's no going back.
About what's going on in the real estate market, specifically here in Grand Junction, and we're going to do it right after this, so stay tuned. What's up, everybody? I'm Robert Hayes, along with my wife, Christie. We are the Hayes Home Group right here in Grand Junction, Colorado. Hey, if this is your very first time to this channel and you just want to know everything about what it's like to work, live, play, eat, sleep, and the housing market here in Grand Junction, make sure you hit subscribe, tap the bell, so you're notified every single time we post a new video. If you're returning back, thank you so much. Hey, we're getting reach outs every single day from folks looking to move out this way. And if that's you, or you have questions about moving here to Grand Junction, reach out any way that you know how. As much as we love doing these videos, we'd love nothing more than to crush your real estate goals. So that information popping up below, give us a phone call, shoot us a text, send us an email, even send that dang carrier pigeon. We've got your back days, nights, weekends when moving out here to Grand Junction. Okay, so let's take a look at what happened. Let's take a step back. In 2008, what happened? What caused the housing crash of 2007, 2008? Well, Lehman Brothers filed bankruptcy, and really that stemmed from three things, really. You had cheap debt, you had predatory lending, and you had very complex financial engineering. All those three things combined created the perfect storm.
By a perfect alignment of interior and exterior factors gone violently wrong. A perfect storm, if you will,
for foreclosures to basically just emit it across the entire country. So what are they talking about today as far as a bubble? What two things do you need to have happen for a housing bubble to occur? Well, number one, you certainly need speculation. Number two, you need over-evaluation, home price overvaluation. Now, you can argue about some areas in the country that might be a little overvalued. I'm not picking on you, Peoria, Illinois, that just popped in my head. Probably not an influx of folks looking to move to Peoria, but maybe South Florida, Texas, here in Grand Junction, Colorado. You're not really seeing overvaluation. You're talking about folks that are willing to pay a certain price for a home. That's not overvaluation. That's just simple supply and demand economics. So going back to 2008, let's take a look at the predatory lending practices, which was a big piece of that housing crash in 2007, 2008. Back then, if you were a borrower and you were breathing, you could get a mortgage loan.
Take it all.
So what happened was the baristas down at Starbucks, hey, I love baristas, I love my lattes. Just as an example, though, they were buying 3 and 4 houses at the same time, making, whatever they make. I'm sure they weren't making $300,000-400,000 grand a year. And they were just telling the lender, hey, this is what I make. Believe me, it's all good.
You trust me? I do.
And the lender said, you got it. We'll go ahead and give you a mortgage on that 4th property. We don't need any documents. We believe you. So when you have that across the entire country over years and years, that's going to create a market that's just not sustainable. And then, of course, you have the cheap debt. Interest rates were relatively low at that time. And again, those Wall Street complex financial engineering schemes that led to the mortgage meltdown. So really what's gone on in the last 12 years was kind of a vacuum where people were buying property that had to buy property. Now, you remember this line from 2020, right?
Flatten the curve.
Flatten the curve. You flatten the curve.
Flattening of the curve.
So COVID hit. Now, what did that do? Well, the government, our awesome government, decided to go ahead and infuse trillions of dollars into the economy. What happens when the government infuses trillions of dollars free money into the economy. At the same time, you had companies that were saying, look, we don't need Bob to work 5 miles from the office. Bob can work wherever he wants in the country.
But now Bob was no coward, you know.
And that created an absolute crazy job market at the same time. So now, over the last couple, 2-3 years since COVID, we actually had people that were sitting in their homes in their 3-bedroom, 2-bath, but they were staring at the green drapes and the yellow carpet, and they said, hey, Sally, I really don't like this house after all.
This house is on a bit of a tilt.
We've got all this cash.
We got money.
And we can work wherever we want.
I go wherever I want.
Let's go ahead and buy a new house.
We're buying a house, a really nice house.
So you had interest rates that were remaining low. The Fed benchmark interest rate, the government kept super low. So mortgage rates were 2.9, 3%. New jobs, job market was going nuts. Now you had people that were actually wanting to buy a home instead of having to buy a home. So now where are we at today? Well, I think what we're seeing is we're just coming back to sanity. We cannot have 36% appreciation year over year forever. Markets move all the time, but markets typically don't move like this all the time. They go like this and like that and like that. So over time, obviously real estate is always going to be an incredible investment. So what we're seeing today is folks still getting not cheap debt, but mortgage rates that are coming back to reality. The average mortgage rate is about 6.5% over the last 20, 30 years. So we're still below that, but debt's certainly not cheap as it was a couple of years ago. And there's certainly no speculation in the market. The average credit score required now is well over 750. And yes, you have to actually show documents that you make money to afford that home. Now, are some folks still speculating? They absolutely are, but it's certainly not in the housing market. Have you looked at Bitcoin lately over the last couple of years? Those JPEG monkeys, I guess that's a thing now. People are speculating in other areas, but certainly not in the housing market. So let's take a look at some local data in Grand Junction. So May of 2022 is where these numbers are derived from. We were at a 16.8 appreciation year over year from May of 2021. CoreLogic actually predicts that home prices nationally are going to rise about 5.9%. I think it's going to be a little more than that based on the data that I'm looking at here in Grand Junction. And the Mortgage Bankers Association is anticipating an appreciation rate of 5.2% from now until next year, 12 months over year appreciation. So when you take a look at the Grand Junction market, we're certainly seeing listings. In fact, let me throw this stat out at you. The actual contract price to list price is 99.91%, meaning a home is listed for 500 grand, it's selling for 500 grand. And again, a lot of times it's a little bit over that still in this market. So instead of having 17 people bid on the same property, we're coming back to sanity where you might have 3 or 4 people bidding on the same property. So we're certainly not in a crash. We're not in a bubble. We're coming back to reality and we're coming back to sanity. Like I said, people love misery. The news loves misery. Heck, Christie loves watching Dateline murder mysteries. Why? Because it's fun and people jump on that misery. Misery loves company, right? Why would the news show great news stories and good feeling stories? That doesn't sell papers. That doesn't sell news. That doesn't get clicks. So if you're thinking the market's going to crash, then take a look at Dave Ramsey here. He just talked about this the other day, and here's what he has to say about it.
Supply is drastically short versus demand. Prices are not going down. There is not going to be a real estate crash. There's nothing in this equation that says there's going to be a real estate crash. Nothing. And you can take it to the bank. I've told you some other stuff that came true. Like I told you inflation was coming. I tell you stuff. Guys, I've been doing this a long time. I'm going to wait on the house prices to go down. You're They're not going down.
So what Dave is saying is this: back there during those 12 years after the mortgage crash, builders weren't building homes. Right now, there are half as many home starts as there were back in 2008. And so when COVID hit, we had all this free money from the government. People were getting employed all over the country as remote workers. Builders were like, oh my gosh, what's going on? I guess we got to build some houses. That is not going to be sustainable enough to bring that supply and demand. Again, that's the only formula that matters: supply versus demand. It's going to take some time where there's going to be more buyers than there are sellers. And until that happens, we're going to be in a more sane market, but there's certainly no bubble on the horizon, specifically here in Grand Junction as well. So I hope that makes sense. I hope that gives you a better feeling. Again, as we move forward into this new market, remember there are two people in this market. There's the innovator and there's the imposter. Decide which one you want to be as we move forward in this new real estate world. Hope that makes sense. Again, if you love this information and you're looking to move here to Grand Junction, that information popping back up below. Make sure you give us a call, shoot us a text, send us an email, even send that darn carrier pigeon. We've got your back days, nights, weekends when moving out here to Grand Junction. Until the next video, we'll catch you later.